Pete Holloway. I'm a retired financial advisor and retired certified financial planner. And as always, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to On Money. I'm going to introduce you first, maybe just his voice, because everyone knows it. And then for the first time, many of you will be seeing my guest today, Steve Novotney, one of the best known people on radio in the Valley. He's a Wheeling native, graduated from Lindsley in '85, got a communications degree with a specialization in journalism from West Liberty. He's married and has two children, Mandy and Michael. And again, Steve, I want to welcome you aboard and thank you for meeting with us.
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for the invitation. You've been doing the show for 18 years, so hey, I finally made it.
Well, I was scraping the bottom of the barrels.
Yeah, that's usually where you can find me.
Well, let's talk about you first. I wanted part of the show is about you, but part of it is about the radio industry and what's been going on since you've been with it. Tell us about your career to date.
Radio has been a lot of fun for me. Radio to me has never been work, really, until you get into the journalism side of what I do. Goofing around on radio was fun back in, college days up on West Liberty's campus, and, have a lot of fun getting WGLZ up and running. And I'm proud that it's still up and running. But I was also involved with the Trumpet at West Liberty, and that's the student newspaper. And God bless Bill Hanna and his dedication. Love you, Bill. But, radio has gone through a lot of changes. My career started at West Lib, and then I did a little in Wheeling. But then when I went to Pittsburgh to publish the official newspaper, the Pittsburgh Pirates, I ended up on ESPN and KDKA. I mean, ESPN, everybody knew who that was. That was founded by a Lindsley alum, Bill Grimes. But, KDKA, my grandmother listened to that. That was one of her branches to America. And all of a sudden, here I am on KDKA. That was a big damn deal. So, when we came home, because my son was coming home from the military, we wanted him to come home to his hometown of Wheeling, not Pittsburgh. So I quit all that and came home to Wheeling so Michael could come home to Wheeling and go to West Liberty. And I got lucky enough to get on the big stick, WWVA. And then I was on the Watchdog for 13 years. And now, after a year and a half of going away from radio and pretty sure I was going to stay away forever, they got me back one more time. And now I'm on the River Network on River Talk, 4 different stations from East Liverpool to New Martinsville, Cambridge to Washington, PA. It's on 100.1 and 1290, the mighty 1290 here in the Wheeling area. And I'm on 100.9 and 1430 in Steubenville, Weirton. So it's a big difference not being able to be heard outside of Elm Grove. Like I was for more than a dozen years. It's a lot of fun talking with that many people. Another, though, big change that's happened, Pete, is callers aren't the same anymore. I don't drive calls like I did before. Talk radio has gone a little bit more toward Talk Magazine, to where I do a lot of interviews and we field questions, but it's more through text lines and through online platforms than it is people getting on their phones, because let's face it, distracted driving is a thing now. We live in a nice big community when you think about the whole listening area, but everybody still knows everybody. So they'll text me their responses, but they won't call them because maybe they don't want the boss to hear them anymore.
That's interesting, because that was going to be one of my questions. How has radio changed? I would not have thought of that, but that is really fascinating. Now, I got to ask you, because everyone's thinking this, do you have a tilt switch? In other words, are you 5 seconds ahead?
I am 7 seconds ahead, and that's always a good thing.
So do I.
Yeah, we call it the dump switch. And, last week, one of the major things we were talking about was Bob Huggins. And I wondered first, I mean, I didn't really like what he had to say. I'm Catholic. But I wondered immediately, where's the producer? Where's the dump switch? Did that producer get fired? And we found out last Thursday that individual did get fired. And he said, well, I didn't dump it because I wanted, the context of the whole conversation to go through. And I think there's going to be a lot more questions asked to that producer because, of course, Bob Huggins was in Cincinnati for 18 seasons. So, were they trying to hurt their old nemesis? I don't know. But I'm glad that Bob Huggins, hopefully, I will be glad when he learns his lesson. You don't say things like that. And last week, I gave credit to my mom. We lost my mom going on 2 years, but I still have the mom filter, Pete. When that microphone opens, what sometimes you hear come out of this mouth doesn't go over the air anymore.
Yeah. Now, what other changes, when you started, now they've got satellite radio and things like that. And I also wanted, before that, I was thinking about AM radio in general. When you started, the Rush Limbaughs of the world were really big, and are they still out there, or has there been a change in that kind of personality too?
Well, obviously we don't have Rush anymore. He was the pioneer of the talk industry, whether he did it the right way or not. I don't think he did. Sometimes my father and I would go on long rides. My dad is a military guy. We'd go out to Columbus and things like that. And I always looked forward to listening to a couple hours of Rush because I'd be like, Daddy's making that up. Or Dad, that's elevated. That's not exactly accurate. Or, Dad, that's not entirely true. We'd have those kind of conversations, but business-wise, Rush did it right. And yeah, we do have those syndication stations out there. There's a lot of syndication out there. Our stations have some syndication on them because, you bring in voices from around the country. It's kind of like me coming or going out to Cambridge or East Liverpool or down to New Martinsville, and I'm in Wheeling. So it's the same premise. I'm more of a regional talk show now than I've ever been before. And that's where talk has gone. It's gone regional instead of hyper local. Now, my show every day, every afternoon, it is hyper local, but I then try to bring in those other municipalities in the listening area for compare and contrast. That's the way I have found to really use that listening audience the best I can.
Okay. Now, the point of everything is to make money, follow the dollar, etc. So advertising is key to you and to your industry. How has advertising changed over your career?
Well, I'll give you an example. When I first came home in 2004, and I went on the air. I was the afternoon guy on WWVA. WWVA itself had 6 sales representatives. That entire house now has 1.
Really? Wow.
And people on air, such as myself, we do more selling than what we've ever done. The journalists on air, the personalities on air, because we know the people. We are no longer separated. I have always hated Pete to be called the talent. Not that. When I was in Pittsburgh, I did a remote show in a bar right across the street from PNC Park when I was on ESPN. The show was called Talkin' Bucko Baseball, right? Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was publishing the official newspaper of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So what better show to have? So and the bar was called Castellanos. It's since been bought out. They made their money, right? Mm-hmm. But I did the show every Thursday night, and I would meet the producers downstairs and the engineers, and I would try to help carry the equipment. They wouldn't let me. Okay, and it was like, oh no, you're the talent, Steve. Oh no, we'll get in trouble if you get hurt. And it's like, okay, so if I hurt my leg, I sit when I do the show. It's not going to hurt just let me help you. And they're like, no. Now I carry most of the stuff because I'm trying to help as much as possible. There have been big changes, but yeah, the objective is make some money. So I do what I do. I sell a little bit of advertising with some of my friends, and everything in the world goes around. But we still do have dedicated sales folks. So if you want to talk to your sales folks, get on Novotney now. Give them a call as soon as we're done here.
You're selling.
You got to do it these days. Pete, when you were not retired, you had to sell yourself. So you got all your clients, because in your name of the game, it's trust. In my name of the
As everyone who's used Zoom knows, once in a while the screen freezes, and we just had that happen. So we're going to try and catch up to where we were with Steve Novotney. We're talking about advertising, and particularly that you have to sell the advertising as well as the advertising staff. Tell us a little more about that, because it's something you were not trained for.
No, I wasn't trained for it, but through the years, Pete, I've been able to get to know a lot of the people who have been my clients, because I've always been very hands-on. And in in this business, we have something called added value. And one of the added value things is me bringing people on the show and actually talking about their product or talking about their services. And as it pertains to the community, why does the community need it? And how can it help the community in certain situations? So, through the years, like Panhandle and Bordis and the good folks down at Bauer and my friends out at the Glessner Group. Not only have I known, like Bauer, I've known Aaron's father, and I knew Carl's father, Frank, for goodness sake. It being in this business, you get to know a lot of great people, and you learn how to work with them, and you learn how to, use that added value part of talk radio. So, even though I wasn't trained for it, I'm a pretty personable person, and that comes out in the wash.
That's great. Shifting subjects again, you've been in this business for quite a while. What story are you the most proud of, and why?
Well, I'm also in print journalism, so that's kind of tough because I do, of course, I have the website Lead News.
LEDE News.
LEDE, that's right. And that's spelled that way because that's the original way that it was spelled. It's the Latin version, right? If it bleeds, it leads. Well, if it bleeds, it LEDES. But, I do both of them, and sometimes they kind of come together every once in a while. But wow, over the years, what story am I most proud of? Man, I've covered disasters. I covered the flood in 2004. I've covered the shooting at the federal building. I'm pretty proud of that. We collected eyewitnesses very quickly for that. I've covered elections, ice storms, just everything everybody's needed to hear about or read about. Probably the story I'm most proud of are the people features that I've been able to do through the years, because that really brings the community to life. I do that in the print version on Lead News, and I do it on radio almost every day.
Great. You have a pretty big region to cover now. Where do you find your stories? Or are they just when people call in, or you hear about something going on in East Liverpool? How does that work?
Social media, Pete, really helps you out with that, because as long as you're a member of all the community groups, with the Steubenville people, with the East Liverpool people, and Steubenville especially, you get a lot of that. And you also, those people want to be heard, so they will reach out to you, whether it's a charitable function, or if a community has an initiative and they're trying to get government's attention, they'll reach out to you and ask for help. I also tell a lot of people, listen, if you do have a charitable event, let me know, because people are listening up in Steubenville and Weirton just as much as they're listening down here in the Wheeling audience. I also pay attention to the old school newspaper. That's where my career started. I have a ton of respect for what they do up at the Review in East Liverpool, the Weirton Daily Times, the Steubenville Herald Star. I think the people over in the Martins Ferry Times Leader do a terrific job. And of course, you got a lot of hardworking people still in the Wheeling newspaper. So I still depend on those kind of print journalists as well. They do a hell of a job here, and we should be happy about that.
You know, it's funny what you just said, because I remember, because I'm older, 30, 40 years ago, you didn't mention the name of the competing medium. So if you're on radio, you would not say the Intelligence or the Times Leader.
Right.
They were in. But anyway, that was great of you. One final thing, a little prediction here. We've been talking about the evolution of the radio industry, and there's, you know, the internet, satellite, all that kind of stuff technologically. You talked about how talk radio is changing. What do you see as being the next big change in the radio industry?
Well, I think we're going to listen to more radio on our phones, and we already are, than what we actually need a radio for. Now on air, I have to tell people to make sure they keep their phones on, because throughout my career, I've always tried to keep people in their driveways after their commute home. Okay, we live where we live, right? And if I'm on until 6 o'clock, I don't want people going into their homes for 3/4 or half of the 5 o'clock hour. I want them to sit in their driveways. So now I want them to keep their phones in their hands so their wives or their husbands are yelling at them when they walk through the front door. I think that biggest change is upon us. I don't know what could be next. And by the way, based on something that you just said about 30 or 40 years ago, last week, I celebrated 32 years in journalism, professional journalism.
Congratulations.
I've lived, thank you. And I've lived with that mantra. Don't say the competitor, never say the competitor. I think that's horse crap. And I'll tell you why. If somebody else broke a story, I'm not stealing it from them. I'm not acting like I broke it. I'm going to say the Intelligencer or WTRF or WTOB or the Times Leader or whomever. I'm going to say that the competition broke the story, because then I'm going to follow up on it, and that's going to be mine. Okay. I've worked for the newspapers and every radio station now, Pete, so I can't get fired from this one. But
we'll talk to Teresa if there are any problems. We can take you on here.
Well, you know, I mean, that's my next best step. You know, I just haven't played into those games through the years, and I never will. Whether it's on Lead News or my radio station or whatever. If you break the news, I'm going to give credit for it, but then I'm going to out-report you on the follow-ups, and people are going to forget about who broke the news.
That's great. Well, Steve, I want to thank you for your great career. Hopefully it goes on for a long time. I'm being greedy because we want to keep you in your place doing the good things that you do for the community. Thank you very much. I want to thank the audience too. We'll be seeing you next week. I'm Pete Holloway.